Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Em and today we're going to talk about all the books I read in September. Let's get into it. All right, I read 23 books in September. So the first thing I want to say is if you read one book in September, you did awesome. If you read 5, you did awesome. If you read 50, you did awesome. Is this focusing on my face? Thank you. So I just want to send out that disclaimer. I don't want anyone to feel bad because they did not read 23 books in 1 month. Remember that as I'm going through this. This is about what works for me. I average around 20 books every month. So this is just this is what my reading pace is like. I also read a bunch of middle grade, so these are not all chunkers. Some of them are a lot smaller. What else was I gonna say? And I'm a big audiobook listener. So I think that really opens up my reading because I listen to audiobooks all the time, which makes it really easy to consume, for me at least, makes it easy to consume multiple books. So now that disclaimer is out of the way, let's get into it. We're going to start with my self-destructing TBR. If this is your first one of my videos, hi. And my self-destructing TBR is the books that I bought in the same month of the previous year that I haven't read yet. So I had 2 on the list for this month. The first one that I read is technically 4 books. It's the Tenserate series by Neon Yang. This is a bind-up of all 4 novellas. I read all 4. I think this averaged about 4.25 stars, I think, when I averaged out what I gave each individual novella. I really liked the first one. I didn't like the second one as much. I loved the third one. That one was like kind of like a mixed media thing. And then I didn't like the last one very much. I mean, it was fine. I gave it a... What did I give it? Oh, I didn't mark it. Who knows? Okay, so marked all the other ones. But this is basically the fall of a kingdom. And I thought it was really cool. The gender stuff was super awesome. I think if you're looking for like a little novella series to dive into, that I would recommend this one. I thought it was really interesting. And then the other one, technically I'm not finished with it yet, but I have like 3 chapters left and I know my feelings about it. So I'm just going to say I finished it because I will have it finished by the end of the day, and that is The Wolf of Oren Yarrow by K.S. Veloso, and I wanted this to be a new favorite so bad, and it sadly is just not. I have a vlog that'll be out next week with more in-depth thoughts on this one because I'm filming the vlog while I'm reading this, so I'm not going to go in-depth, but I feel like it was mismarketed, and that was the first part. And then the second part is I feel like this is a great example of an author who is telling you but not showing you, because we keep getting told things about Tally, but her actions aren't matching up, never matched up with what the author was telling us about her. So I think I'm going to give it a 3 stars because it was just okay for me. And I'm really bummed because I thought this was going to be a new favorite series that I could dive into, and I'm definitely not going to be continuing with the series. All right, next we're going to talk about all the middle grade I read this month. I don't have a physical copy of one of them, and now I have to find it. Hold, please. So the first kid book I'm going to talk about is the first book in the Layla and Nugget mystery series. This is called Who Stole Mr. T? And this is a really cute early middle grade. Like I would say middle grade starts at 8. I would say this would be for like maybe 6 as like a read aloud. So 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 is my recommendation. Obviously, like mileage will vary depending on the reader. But I thought this was a really cute start to a mystery series. Layla and her friends, along with her corgi Nugget, try to solve the mystery of what happened to her friend's turtle, whose name is Mr. T. And it was really cute. It was really sweet. I really liked the audiobook. And yeah, it took me like 30 minutes to read it. but it was a good time. Next, I read Wretched Waterpark by Kiersten White. This is the first book in the Sinister Summer series. This is a mystery series. It was really funny. It was, even though it's a mystery, it was pretty lighthearted, and I really loved the siblings in this book, especially the twins, Theo and Alexander, and I gave this 5 stars. I'm going to keep reading this series. I thought it was so fun. Great book for spooky season. I also talked about this a lot more in my spooky middle grade series or my spooky middle grade rec video, and I have a reading vlog where this is featured, so I'll try to link those down below if you want more detail, but I really loved it. And let's see, I listened to a whole bunch of audiobooks this month, so all of these were, I have library copies, but I listened to all of these on audio because I was trying to really whittle through my Libro FM backlog, I guess, this month. Oh, this will be a good place to talk about this. So I referenced this in my October TBR video, but I was a bookseller for 3 years. I've been exclusively a social media manager for a bookstore for the last 2 years, and Libro FM has a really fantastic bookseller program in addition to their influencer and librarian and teacher programs. And because of that, I have a obscene number of audiobooks on my Libro account. And whenever I select them for the month, I tag them with the month that I've gotten them. But I've only been doing that for the last year. So I've come back around. October was when I first started doing it. And so I'm going through those tags and I'm trying to listen to as many of the books as I can before that month comes up so that that tag isn't cleared out for 2023 releases, so that I'm not like getting confused about when I got which audiobooks. And I did it this month, or I did it in September for the first time. It worked really well. I was a big fan. But because of that, I think 16 of the 23 books were exclusively audio, because I was just trying to work through that. So you have to keep that in mind as you're seeing all these books. So this stack of middle grade were all audiobook listens because they were all on the tag that I read from this month. So the first one is The Beatryce Prophecy. This is by Kate DiCamillo. Oh, it's so shiny. And this takes place in medieval England, and it's about a girl named Beatryce who is prophesied to bring about change, and I don't remember what it was, but it was like prophecies to bring about change with the help from a goat named Answelica. This was a very, I felt like, quiet middle grade, even though the stakes are kind of high for Beatryce, obviously, because the king is very corrupt and does not want change to come about. And so it's looking for Beatryce and with the intent of like killing her. So like very high stakes, but the book never felt stressful, and it was very cozy in a way. A lot of Kate DiCamillo's books are charming, and there are beautiful illustrations by Sophie Blackall in here, which made me wish I had actually read it, because I love Sophie Blackall's illustrations. I also listened to The Phantom Tollbooth by Norman Juster, which I have not read since I was in elementary school, and it was pretty fun. Some of the language has not aged very well, as you would expect from a book published in the 70s, but this is about a boy named Milo who goes on a journey into this world where language is very slippery. It's a fun book. My kids and I watched the movie after I finished it, and the movie's real weird too. Next, I read the first 2 books in, I don't know what this series is called. Maybe it's just called the Zara's Rules series. That seems accurate. I read the first 2 books in the Zara's Rules series. I read Zara's Rules for record-breaking fun, followed by Zara's Rules for finding hidden treasure. These are both by Hena Khan. These 2 books both follow Zara and her neighborhood friends and her little brother, and it's just adventures in friendship and family, and I think these would be really comparable reads for Ivy and Bean, and what's the other? Maybe the Penderwicks? These read a little bit younger. I think Zara is 11 or 12, but these could definitely be read by younger kids. Like I would have no problem giving this to like an 8-year-old or even like a 7-year-old as a read aloud. I think these are really fun, and Zara learns some great lessons about being a good friend and being a good sister and just a good person in general, and the antics that she and her friends get up to are really fun. And then I don't read this very often, but I read kids nonfiction, which was fantastic. I gave this 5 stars. I read Unstoppable Us, How Humans Took Over the World, Volume 1 by Yuval Noah Harari. This is the author who wrote Sapiens, and he has adapted it into a edition for children. I think the Volume 2 comes out relatively soon. There is fantastic artwork in this book. I absolutely loved it. I think this would even be a good read for a lot of adults, just about the history of early humans and how humans became what we are, and separating from Neanderthals and other early sapien races. So absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend whether you are a kid or an adult and like to read nonfiction. And even if you don't read nonfiction, I would highly recommend this. He has a great way of teaching early human history. All right, and then the last middle grade book, right, that I read this month is I read the last volume in the Vanderbeekers series by Karina Young-Glasser. I have a dedicated vlog for this book, but this was an absolutely delightful wrap up for this series. I cried multiple times. I highly recommend checking your content warnings though, because this does deal with some really heavy subject matter and has some really serious themes, but also has the same like hope and light and laughter that all the other Vanderbeeker books have. And I am so sad that I don't get to read about this family anymore, but I know I will reread this series because it is just such a comfort to me to spend time with them. Okay, moving on, we have the one standalone I read this month, and that was The Grimoire of Grave Fates. This was created by Hanna, Alkaf, and Margaret Owen, and this was so interesting. This is a short story anthology, kind of, but with a overarching plot. So this is set at a traveling magical boarding school, and there has been a murder of a professor, and each chapter is a different student and is moving throughout the 24 hours immediately following the murder. And so each author had a different student, and you get their perspective of how they are being involved in the murder investigation. And it was really good. Obviously with all short story anthologies, there are some that I liked more than I liked others, but overall, I thought this was a really cool concept, and I loved how diverse the writers were, but also the characters at the school. There's a wide variety of race and sexual orientation, and like the queer rep is really excellent. It was so cool, and I'm interested to see if they do something like this again. I don't know how many people have picked this up. Looking for something a little bit different, if you want a magical boarding school that is more inclusive than other magical boarding schools that we're not going to talk about, I would recommend trying this out and seeing if you like it. And then I also did reread Volume 1 of Heartstopper this month. I don't know why. I just needed a cozy time. I haven't reread this series in a minute. I just was having a sad day and I needed something happy, so I reread Volume 1, and it was, as always, a lovely, lovely time. Okay, next we're on to my nonfiction stack, and I read 4 nonfiction books this month, which is, I usually am like 1, maybe, and I read 4, so I am very happy, and I really liked all of them. Shocking. So the first one I listened to on audio, and it is Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given. And look, I liked this so much, I went out and I bought myself my own copy. So this is basically the feminism pep talk that my teenage self needed. And that I sometimes need, even as an almost 40-year-old woman. I really liked this. It's kind of like a primer on modern feminism. I think Florence Given is really good about including intersectional feminism. I would still read books by women of color for more on intersectional feminism. Like, I think Hood Feminism is like the one you should read, but if you need like a primer to get you going, I think this is a great one to pick. I really liked it on audio. It's got art in it that I just think is fantastic. I guess Florence Given is an artist, and I'd never heard of her before I read this book. She's also queer, so she talks a lot about how feminism is accessible in different ways to different people, whether you are a bi woman, a trans woman, a lesbian, a woman of color, of, you know, just all. She covers a lot of the bases, which I really appreciated, that it wasn't just white woman feminism. I read Nerd Adventures in Fandom From This Universe to the Multiverse by Maya Phillips. I really, really loved this. Maya Phillips just talks about, it's a little bit memoir, it's a little bit the pop culture that she grew up with. She talks about Buffy, she talks about Batman, she talks about Marvel, she talks about, what else? She talks about Doctor Who, she talks about manga, she talks about Sailor Moon. So this was a really, really fun read for me, and I really enjoyed it on audio. And Maya Phillips reads it herself, and I thought she did a fantastic job. And then the other book I listened to was The Wind at My Back by Misty Copeland. This is, again, a mix of memoir for Misty Copeland's career, and then also a little bit of biography about her mentor, Raven Wilkinson, who was one of the first Black ballerinas in the 50s and 60s, and what she went through and what it's like for so many Black dancers when you are the very first to do something. But I really liked this. Misty Copeland reads the audiobook, and their writing is a little bit repetitive in some places. She had assistants writing it. I don't know how helpful her writer was. I don't want to discourage anyone from reading it, but I just want you to know that the writing isn't perfect. There are some mistakes. It is kind of repetitive, but at the end of the day, I really loved the story Misty had to tell, and I loved the reflections that she made when thinking about her own career and also Raven's career. And then the last nonfiction I read this month is I read Breathless, The Scientific Race to Defeat a Deadly Virus by David Quammen. This is about COVID, and it's about the early days of COVID and viruses, and it is a, you know, multi-brain cell kind of read, but I loved how sciencey it was. I loved how nerdy it is, and I learned so much about what was going on in the scientific community in the early days of COVID, and then in development of the vaccine, and what had been happening behind the scenes in the scientific and medical community that got us a vaccine as quickly as we did. All right, and then last category, I guess, is all the series I started. Heavens to Betsy, all the series I started. What was I? Okay. That's fine. It's fine. First is Station Eternity by Mur Lafferty. This is book 1 in the Mid-Solar Murders. This is a murder mystery series that is set on a space station, and our main character, Mallory, death has followed her whole life. Murders happen around her all the time, and then she is often the one to solve these murders, and she is so exhausted by it that she ends up running away to this space station where only 2 other humans live, and the rest is populated by the aliens. I thought the aliens, the races that Mur Lafferty created, were very cool. I thought the murder was really interesting. I liked all the characters, and I had a good time with it. I definitely will pick up book 2. I don't think this is a series that I need to purchase, but I will definitely be getting them from the library, and I might listen to the second one on audio. I did like the audiobook for this. I liked the narrator, but I also liked reading it with my eyeballs, so it felt kind of equal. I also read Paris Daillencourt is About to Crumble by Alexis Hall. This is book 2 in the, I don't know what the series is called actually. But the book 1 is Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake. This is a very, very low steam contemporary romance, and I mean like they maybe kiss 3 times. It's super low steam. But I am in a low steam romance era right now, so I really liked that it was low steam and that the focus was on emotional intimacy and connection. And this is set around a Great British Bake Off style baking show, and I thought Alexis Hall nailed those vibes. The baking show in here is so precious and so wonderful, and I just thought he nailed it. And I do want to go back and I want to read Rosalind Palmer now because I liked it so much. But this is about 2 contestants on this baking show that's called Bake Expectations. Just it's perfect. And it's about Paris and Tariq, and they're both contestants, and they meet and they, start to fall in love. But Paris has mega anxiety over everything, and that is like the main barrier to everything is Paris and his anxiety. So just know that going in, if you are also an anxious person and reading about anxious people doesn't do it for you, or if you are one of those blessed people who does not suffer from anxiety and you do not like reading about anxious people, this may not work for you. But it really worked for me. I really loved it. I thought these characters were so sweet and kind and trying their best, even if their best wasn't the best. And then I reread A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I read this back in January, just reread it this month. And then I also picked up The Last Graduate, which is book 2 in this series. This also takes place at a magical boarding school, except this one is actively trying to kill everyone. And so the name of the game is surviving the magical school so that they can graduate and get out. Elle is the main character. She's one of my favorite main characters I've read this year. She's so rude. And I love her so much. And this is also really diverse in terms of race and ethnicity. The queer rep is not great for these books. There's like a few background characters. So if you're looking for great queer representation, these are not the books. But I am having a really good time with this series. I'm hoping to finish book 3 shortly. So I have just had so much fun, and I can see why this series is so popular. And then I also read Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I read this because my kiddo is obsessed with Becky Albertalli and specifically obsessed with this series. And after reading this, I totally see why. This is about Simon, who is in high school, and he is gay, but he is very much in the closet. He has not come out to anybody. And then he sees this anonymous post on Tumblr from somebody from his school who says that he is been keeping a secret and that he is gay. And so Simon starts anonymously emailing this person called Blue, and they start to fall in love via email. And it's a really great book. The movie is trash, but this was lovely. And then the final book in this wrap-up is I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan, and I didn't love this one. First of all, why is it? It didn't need to be this chunky. It did not need to be this chunky. But this is about Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Her mother has been exiled to the moon for things that she has done, and has been hiding her daughter there in secret. And then in an effort to save her daughter, the moon goddess sends her down from the moon, and our main character is trying to figure out how to free her mother. There was a love triangle in here that I did not like. I was not a fan of it. I liked the plot the rest of the time when she was trying to find a way to free her mother and going on these adventures and these quests with the intent of getting her mother's freedom. And then I felt like every time we went back to the romance plot, the pace slowed down so much, and I just wasn't a fan. I could have done without the romance. I also felt like the plot dragged in a couple places just because it's so long, and I don't know that it needs to be 500 pages. I don't think it needed to be 500 pages. I am planning to read The Heart of the Sun Warrior, which if you watched my October TBR you saw. So we'll see how I like that one. The love triangle thing seemed to have gotten resolved in this one, so I'm hoping now that that is gone, I will like book 2 a lot more. All right, friends, that's everything I read in September. Oh, I forgot a book. One more nonfiction. I read Creativity by John Cleese. This was a hour-long audiobook that he did about creativity. It was fine. It was kind of like being gently lectured by your grandpa about being more creative in your life with a little bit of memoir style anecdotes about John Cleese's schooling, like younger life, like middle school, high school, college kind of age. All right, so now that is everything that I read for September. And if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Tell me, did we read any of the same books at all? I would love to know what your favorite book of the month was. Oh, did I say what my favorite book of the month was? I didn't. What was my favorite book of the month? I think if I had to pick a favorite, I would say Unstoppable Us, reading the Scholomance series, the Vanderbeekers, and Wretched Waterpark. I would say those were my favorites of the month. So tell me what your favorite books of the month were. I would love to know. If you read anything that you think I would really like, I would also really love to know that. I'm always looking for more books to add to my TBR. And if you want to leave a comment but you don't have anything to say, I can't do a book stack. I just did that one. Let's do, is there a globe emoji? Yes, let's do the earth emoji. And I will talk to y'all in the next one. Bye!